This steering committee meeting is called to order. For the reading and approval of the minutes, I call on Vice Chair Brad Turner.
Mr. Chairman, I've had an opportunity to read the minutes from last month. I find them in order to make a motion for their approval.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. First item on our agenda is to fill 3 vacancies and 1 alternate vacancy on the Equalization Board. We do have 5 applicants at this time. We would like to call on each applicant. If you would like to make a statement or address the committee, that would be welcomed. First application we have is Mr. Greg Tucker.
Madam President, I think I know a number of you. I'd be glad to answer any questions. I was approached by Rob, who said he needed some help, and I appreciate the opportunity to help the county, maybe bring a historic perspective.
Any questions for Mr. Tucker?
Do you know what you're getting into, Greg?
Myers Parsons has warned me.
Mr. Dan Alcorn.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you. Dan Alcorn. I've been here 39 years here in Murfreesboro. I've been 28 years as a realtor with Bob Parks. I was asked to come fill out an application if I could be of help up here. Any questions?
Do you know what you're getting into?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I'll just follow some of the others. Any way I can help. Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Delilah Goodman. Delia Goodman. Sorry about that.
Delia. I've been on the board now 2 terms. This will be my 3rd 2-year term, and I do know what I'm getting into. And it's interesting. I know this year being a year with the reappraisals, it's going to be more interesting maybe than the last term. The term before that was a reappraisal year. Learned a lot, so I would welcome the opportunity to serve again. Thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. Goodman? Okay, Mr. Travis Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, I already currently serve as an alternate on the board, so I did get a little taste of what to expect from last year. I'd just like the opportunity to be brought up to the full board. Look forward to the reappraisal year as an appraiser by trade. Look forward to hearing what everybody has to say about this upcoming year. So appreciate the consideration.
Okay, thank you.
As an alternate, do you sit through the hearings?
Yes, last was passed.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Michael McDonald.
Good afternoon. I was recruited by Mr. Mitchell to serve and offer my services. Thank you. Any questions? I'll entertain them. All right, thank you.
The chair will take a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we nominate all the applicants and that each member of the committee votes for 4, with the top 3 vote getters are recommended to the full commission for the 3 primary seats, and that the 4th place person gets the alternate position. And if there's a tie, then we'll have a vote to break the tie.
Okay, is there a second? Second that. Okay, let's go ahead and just vote on the motion as it is, and then we'll take that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will vote on the top 4, and the 4th, or vote for 4, and the 4th will be our alternate. And you can call the vote when you're ready.
Commissioner Johnson,
Mr. Tucker, Mr. Alcorn, Ms. Goodman, and Mr. McDonald.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Mr. Tucker, Mr. Goodman, Mr. Johnson, and my alternate being Mr. McDonald.
Commissioner P,
Tucker, Goodman, Johnson, and Alcorn.
Commissioner Phillips,
Tucker, Goodman, Johnson, and McDonald.
Commissioner Stevens,
Tucker, Alcorn, Goodman, and Johnson.
Commissioner Turner,
Tucker, Goodman, Johnson, McDonald.
Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Tucker, Mr. Alcorn, Mrs. Goodman, and Mr. Johnson.
All right. Tucker and Goodman received 7. Johnson received 6, and McDonald and Alcorn are 4 each.
Could you repeat that?
Tucker and Goodman received 7 votes. Johnson was 6, and Alcorn and McDonald were 4.
Okay, so we have chosen Mr. Tucker, Mrs. Goodman, and Mr. Johnson, and we do have a tie for the alternate. And so at this time, unless there's any other statements, we will vote for one, which would include either Mr. McDonald or Mr. Alcorn.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson,
Alcorn.
Commissioner McAdoo,
McDonald.
Commissioner P,
Alcorn.
Commissioner Phillips,
McDonald.
Commissioner Stevens,
Alcorn.
Commissioner Turner,
McDonald.
and Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Alcorn?
Alcorn is 4, McDonald at 3.
Okay, so Mr. Alcorn will be our alternate nominee. We really appreciate you guys. Your name will be submitted to the full county commission on the 12th. At 6 p.m. Thank you. At this time, we will announce a vacancy on the Emergency Communication District Board that's currently held by Mr. John Hood. And at this time, we will make an appointment of Judicial Commissioner for the town of Smyrna. Is that Zay Ship? Do we need to vote on that, Mr. Mayor?
You need a motion.
Okay, so we'll take a motion to send that forward to the full commission.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. A resolution to require the County Board of Equalization members and County Board hearing officers to complete the annual continuing education. Mr. Mitchell, is this something that we do every year or every 4 years?
They have in the past attended, but it hasn't been required. This was the first year that the legislature is requiring that they attend one of the training sessions before they can serve on the board.
Okay, so this is something required by the state?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Was there anything that happened, Rod, that made them change to mandatory, or was that too complex a question that?
It's my understanding that in a great number of the counties, there was a lack of understanding of the process
Okay.
and the laws, so they felt it was important that there be some type of training that they sit through and be required to sit through it, so that they know what the process is and what they can and can't do on the board.
Is it online, or do they have to travel, or
They
how
have
is
to
it
travel.
hosted? Okay, so they pay for it out of their own pocket if they're serving. They're
But
not, there's
usually,
no
yeah,
reimbursement
usually
for
we
that
will
or
drive
the
them up
county.
there and the county covers their costs like a full service.
That's
day.
awesome. So county
Yeah.
would cover the cost. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And the chair will take a motion.
The state has mandated this now.
Yes, sir.
Why do we need to act on it?
Yeah.
It says-
Because it's on the agenda.
says- The resolution says that they've mandated that we adopt this resolution requiring training.
They've mandated that we, I hate being mandated.
Well, it says the county legislative body shall by resolution establish a minimum of 4 hours of training annually. So they told us we need to pass a resolution, it appears.
And if we say no,
I have no idea what the penalty is.
I move to adopt the resolution.
Second, Mr. McAdoo. Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we have on our iPads a litigation list. Resolution to urge the General Assembly to support Senate Bill 2509 and House Bill 1958 regarding the Register of Deeds office. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this?
Right here. They were like, we're already up to this. What we're looking at is on the bill, originally in the Constitution, the Register of Deeds gets a 5% commission on the mortgage and transfer tax that we collect for the state. At some point in history, around 2006, during the Bredesen term, the state ran upon some hard times and couldn't constitutionally change it, but they did add a little sentence that said that we get the 5%, but we must remit 52% of the 5% back to the state. Which, yeah, I know. And which, in effect, makes the commission actually 2.4%. And we lose at 2.6. That was supposed to be a temporary measure, and we've been trying to get that back. As president of the Registers Association, we really have been pushing this hard over the last few months. It's passed through the Senate. It is in the House, going through some. It's been rolled out, then rolled back in. I'm not sure, you know, it's very fluid right now as to what's going to happen with it. The problem is it has a large fiscal note for across the state of about $6 million+. In the state budget, that's not a lot, but when this year the state budget has, that would make about 75% of what they've got as recurring monies that they have unallocated monies that can be recurring. So I don't think we're going to get the full percentage this year. We might not get any of it this year, but I would like for them to hear that you would be in support of restoring, we're calling it restoring, our full commission back. Other offices that they, you know, I won't use the word rated, but recouped funds from have all been restored. We're one of the few offices that have not been restored to our full commission back. Just for example, I got some numbers from today for month end. I wrote a check to the state for $1,165,000 and $111. The 5% should have been $59,688. We got to keep $28,650. So we lost basically the 2.6% of $31,037. That's this month. So annually to Rutherford County, it would be anywhere from $360,000 to $380,000, I would figure, at current values of properties. Obviously, this number is going to continue to grow as we grow. For smaller counties, as part of my duties as president of the Registers Association, they need this excess fee just to run their office. You know, it's sort of it'll be a lot less dollars for them, but the smaller amount means a whole lot to them. So what we're looking for across the state, we're asking county commissioners and mayors to voice a support for this bill. If we don't, so much of our time this year has been spent just educating people. Most people had no idea this has happened or this has been going on. And we've also found that true at the state level. Most of your legislators had no idea. So we've spent a lot of time this year just educating people as to when this happened, the history of it, when it happened, and what we would like to see restored. So what we're asking for is for a resolution from the County Commission of Rutherford County to help support this bill. Understand, I doubt seriously we're going to get it this year. That being said, we may get a portion of it this year, and a portion of it next year, and the next year. Or we may not get any this year, but we'll be right back on it next year. We just need to let them hear our voices that you would be in support of restoring us to the full 5%.
I move we accept this.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Pete, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay, please.
If this money was restored, what percent of that would go to the county's general fund?
All of it. We already turn over in excess of these current dollars. These will not stay in the registrar's offices, would go straight to county general fund.
So what were you pertaining to when you were saying that it was needed in some counties?
Smaller counties, it would go first, the monies, the commission goes to the use of the register. Smaller counties, it would probably pay their salaries. There are some counties that literally have a register and one employee, a part-time employee. They can't afford to pay the salary. They can't afford paper. They can't afford equipment. They can't afford to pay for software upgrades and things of that nature. They just don't have the same prosperous market that we do that provides them. So for them, a few $1,000s is a whole lot of money, and it's life or death for them. So that's part of the reason why I've really been pushing it. For us, for Rutherford County, it would go straight into our county general. I just believe 5%, when we're talking about, we send a check for $1,165,000 and we get $28,000 back, I think we're well within our rights to request the full 5%, bringing that up closer to $60,000 a month. I think 5% is not much of a overall budget for the state to remit back to the counties.
You don't have unless you ask.
That's exactly right. And I do believe it will probably be integrated in a little bit at a time, because had we done this probably the year before, I've been kind of working on this for several years, we would have had a better chance because we had excess in the budget. This year we don't have as much excess in the state budget, and therefore the overall fiscal note on this being over $6 million was kind of like, whoa, where's that money coming from? Where are we going to take that out of? And really, literally, it would be 75% of their excess that they currently have set aside for reoccurring. So I honestly, I'm not here to lead you astray and let you think that we're going to instantly see this money. But I think hearing the voices of the counties saying that they would like to see this supported will help us in the future get this back for us and other counties. I think it's really important.
Are the other registers taking it to their county
Yes, they
commissions
are.
also?
Several of them have already passed resolutions similar to, so we've encouraged everyone to do that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.
Next on our agenda is our property tax matter for historical homes pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 675218. It's my understanding that Bill Jakes is in the audience. Would like to invite you to the table.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate you, Chairman Gooch and Commissioners. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, so I'm happy to present it to you tonight. Rutherford County's booming, and it's a reappraisal year, and so we know values are going up. But one of the things we're seeing is a lot of redevelopment in the county and in the town, and I see that this legislation as an opportunity to target and pinpoint the preservation of our historic architecture in Rutherford County. The legislation is at least 7 or 8 years old, but once Rutherford County passed 200,000 citizens, we qualify to enact this. City of Murfreesboro as well can follow suit and enact it, but we wanted to come to the county first. I'd like to say that I'm officially representing Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors with bringing this forward to you. Our full board has approved the desire to see this adopted, so we want to push for this as an organization. I brought a lot of handouts. I don't know if you have copies of the things, but I've got some high points for everybody to consider if you want to pass those around. What this would do would essentially not freeze the tax necessarily, but exempt a person from their property tax on the structure, not the lot, if they meet the qualifications set forth by a board. There would have to be some sort of board to oversee that these people, could be this same board, could be another committee set up for this purpose. If property is 75 years old or older and the renovations are going to meet the criteria set forth, a person could, not pay their property tax for 10 years. This would carry forth if the property was conveyed to someone else. So it would be an incentive. It could actually raise the property value. So, if it did sell, I would assume transfer tax might be a little higher. So there's some parts of this that could offset the actual cost of even those taxes that are being saved. So, and sorry if I'm jumping around here. Y'all get me in order. I'm a realtor as well. I'm a real estate broker, and I focus on downtown Murfreesboro. I sell a lot of the historic homes down here. I almost sold one recently and did not, for the simple fact that the only person willing to give me my price said, I'm going to bulldoze it and put 2 more back where it stood. This house was built in 1892. I can't be the cause of such a thing, and I really hope that we could figure out a way to slow this down a little bit. Heritage tourism is one of our big money makers in this town, and I believe that that's going to continue to grow, and we're going to see it spill over into our downtown like it's already started to. Of course, I focus a lot on Murfreesboro, but we've got the King's John's house out in Smyrna that's laying there about to rot and fall down. This might be an incentive for a house like that. We've got the Marymount Mansion out on Rucker Road. It's passed hands twice now. People are going to fix it up, but they don't. So I'm hopeful that if Rutherford County could adopt this, the city might follow suit, and this might have some real teeth.
So is it that the improvements is not taxed?
No, it'd be
the whole property.
The whole tax on the structure. But that is the improvements, according to the tax assessor. So the land is not part of the exemption.
So let's say that it's, for example, it's $100,000, and the improvements, you really get in there and make it, improve it's another $100,000. Are they still paying taxes on the $100,000, or is all of the?
Okay.
Is it just the $100,000 improvements that's waived, or is it the whole?
No, I'm thinking improvements like the assessor looks at it. There's the land, and then there's an improvement. The improvement being the entire house.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's always broken down into 2 parts: the land and the improvements. And so the improvements would be exempt. That would be the original value of the house plus, of course, any other improvements that they do to that house.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chairman, maybe Mr. Mitchell can answer, but it appears to me the language says this agreement of an individual structure to restore such structure in accordance with guidelines specified by its Historic Properties Review Board. It has to be coupled with some restoration project, does it not, before this to?
Absolutely.
They can't just have a historic structure.
Correct.
And gets exempt on
They
that.
have to be
make substantial
renovating.
improvements subject to review board.
Yes.
Approval of what they're doing meets the terms of this.
Yes, sir.
This
And that
language here.
and that review board can set a majority of those terms. Some are already set forth, like the house has to be at least 75 years old. But it's graduated, 75, 125, and 175. Apparently 175 years would automatically qualify. If you're doing, whatever renovations are required to meet it. But at each of those steps, that review board, which would be at the choosing of the commission, would set the criteria for what would qualify. Because 75 years, soon we're going to see the post-war cottages, the little 800 square footers on leaf wrapped in asbestos siding. Well, we're probably not needing to spend a lot of money to preserve that area of town, but especially downtown, especially these old mansions and farmhouses around in the county that are turning into subdivisions. I think there's a lot of opportunity for this.
Just one other point of clarification. The review board shall consist of at least 5 members, of whom at least 1 shall be an architect, who is a member of the American Institute of Architects. 1 shall be a member of the local planning commission, and 1 shall be the county historian. And then at least 2 more are appointed by the mayor.
So if we adopt this, then we would set up this review board?
Yes, you would.
But there are some specific members.
Specific people that have to be placed on it.
What questions do we have?
So that committee sets up what criteria would be used to determine if a property is going to qualify or not?
Correct.
And it's not any more specific than what you just said, okay?
Right.
It doesn't set up these guidelines, except it does determine the age of these properties. Certain of them are automatically should be included with proper improvements and restoration, et cetera, but it doesn't put numbers on that.
Correct. Which should be a safety mechanism, the way I see it.
What about terms of members?
It doesn't say. I think you can set those terms as you choose.
Let me get this straight. So if I were interested in buying a 75-year-old property, it would not automatically qualify as a historical structure. It would have to go before this committee and they would have to approve it. So, and if they approved it, say property taxes right now were being collected because it's in Murfreesboro downtown, property taxes are higher. Let's say the property taxes on it was $5,000 a year. That could actually go down. Is that what you're saying?
For 10 years, it could remove the improvement portion of the tax.
See,
you get someone.
I think we need a little bit of help, Bill, actually on what does the improvement mean? Does that mean what you actually add to the house in your restoration project, or that you're saying it's the whole thing?
It's the structure. Yeah. Anything to do with the structure.
I'd like to see a little bit of, before we actually say what this is, I'd like to see somebody's opinion on this, an Attorney General's opinion or something. I think that's in a gray area that we need a little help on.
Okay. Maybe I'm playing the devil's advocate, I don't know.
Sure.
But if someone bought a historical structure downtown, and what we've done with Main Street is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm thrilled to be a part of that. But one of the historic properties that may be under construction right now, someone may have paid a lot of money for it. I'm just going to say the Critchlow House. Say the Critchlow House was in really, really bad shape.
Yes.
Someone came in and bought it for $250,000, put $2 million in the thing to restore it the way it was. All of a sudden, the assessed property of it is $3 million, and we're collecting property taxes on for $50,000 or something like that. And whoever did that could afford to pay $400,000 to have the daggum thing restored, and we're giving them a tax break for nothing.
Well, not for nothing. You're saving the house. You're saving the historic structure.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but wouldn't someone not necessarily say, once again, I'm playing the devil's advocate, okay?
I completely understand, yes, sir.
You got a historical house that somebody's going to save, wouldn't necessarily automatically be torn down.
Not necessarily.
Okay. But what I'm trying to say is you got taxpayers out there, not 300,000, but 100,000 taxpayers out there that are saying, what about me? You know,
sure.
I'm going to go in and remodel my kitchen. So what about me? It just seems to me that maybe some of the people that can more afford to pay it are the ones that's getting the biggest breaks.
Possibly.
You know, there's something about it that I'm not fully grasping right now. And don't get me wrong.
Yes.
I want to see those things happen.
Yes.
Okay. But what we did on Main Street was tax breaks and certain incentives as far as interest rates and those types of things. But just off of first glance, I've got a little bit of a concern about it. For 10 years, I'm just not real sure.
Well, quick counterpoint. I'm on the city's Historic Zoning Commission as well. All of, pretty much, I'd say 95% of our historic zone downtown is already approved and really should not or could not qualify for this break. And that's some of the highest dollar real estate in the historic zone.
And I'm real proud of that. I know you are.
Yes, sir.
I think everyone is what's happened.
Yes, sir.
Let me just read the first sentence of the statute. Okay. There shall be exempt from property taxation the value of any improvement made to or restoration of any structure included within the provisions of this chapter. I think the only exemption is the improvement or the restoration.
Okay.
That's how I would read it.
Synonymous. That's the way I read the first sentence of this.
Okay.
But I think someone else, could give us a more definitive answer here, but I'm not an attorney, but just simple reading of this, I think it's only the improvements going to be exempted.
Certainly. Well, and there's a lot of details that I'm not certain on here, obviously, but we do have legislation that could be adopted by this county that could be seen as an incentive for saving our historic architecture, and that alone sells it to me. I would love to see a few of these saved and not torn down. I do think a majority of the finest ones have been saved already, but there are handfuls, like a few that I mentioned, that are going to get gone. And therefore, I don't think the expense is going to be that huge, and the best point of all is it's very targeted. Other than that committee, there's no other expense. This goes straight to the point of incentivizing this preservation.
So if we're collecting $5,000 on one of the historic homes, and someone comes in and make application and it's approved, we'll continue to assess that at a $5,000 rate, continue to pay. It's just that what they're doing to the home won't be reappraised for a specific period of time. Does it have to be 10 years?
It states that it's 10 years in there.
A partial exemption is 10 years, and that's primarily exterior improvements. A total interior restoration would be a 15-year exemption, but the stick that always comes with the carrot is that they deviate from the plan. Once it's approved at the board, somebody makes an application, the board will review it, and then the submission will be made to the State Board of Equalization, and the State Board actually grants whether or not it will be a 10-year or a 15-year exemption. Should they ever alter that, there's a full recapture of all taxes that are abated. Back to day one.
Say that again.
There is a full recapture of all taxes that are abated.
What keys that? What triggers that?
As soon as if they deviate from the approved plan. So if they decide they want to put on a sunroom, it's not part of the approved plan, they lose the exemption back to the first day. And there's a recovery of all taxes.
What if they bought the property for $100,000 and 2 years later sold it for $500,000?
It'll transfer with the sale.
It goes with the transfer of ownership.
So here's guys that made $400,000 and the new owner's not going to pay taxes on it.
The new owners won't have to pay. The 10-year or 15-year exemption follows any new owner.
He'll pay capital gains.
Let me just say this.
The transfer tax will also be increased in that situation.
$438 million in brick and mortar for schools over the next 5 years.
I hear that.
Where the heck's that coming from?
Well, there's an average of a 30% increase in properties in a historic area as opposed to one that's not. So the rise in other property values will be spread around the entire market because it's a more valuable community. So the tax burden is actually more equally distributed rather than just laying on the few properties that are there. So your return is much greater if you go up 3 to 15% on 100 homes rather than if you collect 100% of one.
Let me play angel's advocate. So I think that you're referring to quite a bit of the larger, more desirable estates. I think what Jace was talking about would be these older homes that an individual who may not have great means, and this would be an incentive for them to take this home that's fallen in disrepair to renovate it and build it back up, where an investor or something, they're not going to be interested in that. And it's like you said, all the major homes, a lot have already been done, but what about the smaller homes that may qualify? And then you have someone with lesser means that if they could have this type of break, they may be able to do it. And I think that's kind of where we're getting at right now, possibly.
The makeup of the board makes me feel a little more comfortable about it. Once again, the concern that I have is how is the general public going to take this? You have a small home, you renovate it, you double in size of it, you're going to pay more taxes.
Sure.
It's just simple, it's pretty simple to me. And someone there are a lot of those homes out there, you know, that are 50 years old, not 75 years old, that are 50 years old and in a bad need of some renovation. But another 25 years down the road, I'm not sure where they'll be. Would all of the 3-bedroom ranch and Mitchell Nielsen qualify, you know?
At 75 years, they could come before the commission and ask for it.
I guess I ought to shut up. I won't be.
Well, the review board will set the standards. Is that-
Yes, the
so-
75-year is the first criteria, and then they would come before that body, is my understanding. Then that board or committee would decide if it met the other criteria necessary. You may exclude ranches altogether. I think that, you know, it might have to meet other architectural criteria before it could qualify.
But in that case, let's say it happened, they'll still be paying, based upon the first sentence of the act, they'll still be paying the property taxes that they were. It's just on the improvement value that they went to restore this place. And we can get clarification, but that's the way I'm reading it too.
I was a little confused on that point, obviously, to begin with, but yes, if that's the case, then really, you're just freezing their taxes for 10 years at the rate they're already at. Well, actually, you'd be freezing the valuation of that. If the rate ever went up, then their tax bill.
But then after 10 years, it pops up to
current valuation.
Kind of like we do with a lot of corporations.
How many properties are there that are like 175 years old or 125 years old that are out there?
There are not a lot of those. I mean, there's some 125-year ones, but you flip through the old Hearthstones books from the 40s, and you know, 70% of those are gone. We've got Oaklands and Marymount and the Johns King and the Corners in Reedyville. But you know, a lot of these are less known properties out in the country. Like the one Greg lives in, that none of you know, I've been there, but I don't know that many people know about this house.
I know where it's at.
He's hid, that's the key. But I don't have solid numbers for that question, but there are certainly enough of them out there that are at risk right now. You know, that I see this, and really, it just seems like a wonderful step for this county to take. There are 5 or 6 counties that qualify for this in Tennessee now. None has enacted it. This could really be a statement, you know, that our county cares about historic architecture. I think that could draw people in. I assure you Williamson County will jump on this when they get the chance.
Now,
The county just passed 200,000 this year.
when Murfreesboro and, say, Smyrna have to pass this for any homes in the cities, or the county
They would have
commission?
to agree to this as well. They'd have to adopt it as well for their portion of it to be a part of that. But you know, again, we feel like if the county would take the first step, and the cities would be more inclined to follow.
I like the idea because I think we're losing our history just across the board, whether it's national or state or down to the local level. And I think anything that we can do to try to preserve some of that matters. And I support it. You know, I would absolutely. I would make a motion that we move forward with this proposal to move it to the full commission for April meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
So are we still going to ask for the Attorney General opinion on?
Well, just maybe make your motion subject to
Review or
county
that's
internal
fine.
review that our interpretation is accurate here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just get this really clear in my mind. The review board will be members, 3 of the 5 are specific, spelled out in here, with certain qualifications, and I like that. And the other 2 will be appointed appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the commission. Is that correct?
It just says they're appointed by the mayor, and whether it's confirmed or affirmed, I don't know how you want to take that.
We need to define like how long the person is going to serve and when the appointments would be.
I think your county commission could probably go ahead and set that.
You don't want all the terms to
length of
expire
term.
the same
No, that's
time.
right.
Stagger the terms.
and property taxes will actually be frozen. That's what we're saying. It's, I still see some issues out there, but once again, I'm a native. I've never lived anyplace else, and I know Greg's kind of the same way, and I know he has more historical knowledge in his front pocket than I've got in my whole body, although the thought of this, it makes me feel good. But the concerns that I have are deals that are coming due. Absolutely. And opportunities not to take advantage of some of those things. And I'm going to kind of say that your thought about the smaller houses would necessarily mean that they are mansions and would be worth $500,000. So with that, I'm going to support it, and we'll just kind of get some more interpretation and see where it goes. But I do have some concerns about it. I do, and I appreciate Mr. Jakes, you bringing this up here and laying yourself on the line and allowing some of those devil's advocate questions. Thank you for putting up with me.
We're going to go with Commissioner P. and then Commissioner McAfee.
Couple things, and the impression I got from you is if there's a property out there, and when you say improvement, you're talking about anything besides the land that's been put on that property. You know, if I've stuck a rock fence on it, or whatever, that's an improvement. So the impression I'm getting for you is any improvement whatsoever on that property, say if it was just buried property, that would be not taxable, is the way I was taking what you said. Now, I see the mayor kind of raising his hand over there.
Whenever you finish.
My question is, should that be an improvement of existing buildings? You know, I don't think it's spelled out well. I think that needs to be spelled out.
It's in the first sentence again.
Any structure.
Any improvement made to or restoration of any structure.
Well, and see, that leads into some more questions I've got. For instance, I can think of 5 or 6 old mills on the Stones River that have deteriorated and, you know, pretty well washed away or whatever, but there's still partial structures there. And, you know, is that something that would qualify possibly?
I believe that committee or commission that's set up to oversee this could you know, vote on such a thing. I personally would hope so.
And you've got some properties that may not have a $500,000 mansion or potential mansion. For instance, Uncle Dave Macon's home place. Uncle Dave Macon's family farm there, or what's left of it, or what was that Mr. Laws used to own. I don't know who owns it now. You know, was partially restored at one time. Right. You know, that's not, you know, a mansion. It's a log house that's been partially restored. You know, I assume that's something that you would look at. That's a smaller home, you know, in my mind anyway.
Absolutely.
So that would be something just for the historical reference of who lived there. I mean, if Elvis Presley had been raised in this shack over there where my great uncle was born, I assume that would be a place that, you know.
Right.
But questions like that, you know, it's the kind of thing that's...
And I think that's just the bottom line for the need for a committee to oversee this, you know, because there are so many gray areas like that. You know, but the example of the mill, that mill in the middle of the creek is not paying any tax at this point. It may be the tax on the whole property or something. I know the old Ike Wright mill is still out there at Halls Hill, and pieces of it are hanging on, but I don't know that anybody would really save anything through this if they were to try to open or, you know, salvage that area.
Well, that was probably a bad example, I think.
Yeah, I made a really bad opening here saying improvements meant the entire structure, because apparently it is very clear that it's just the upgrades and not I'm hung up on looking at these tax reports that say land and improvement value, you know, and improvement value is the whole house.
That's the opinion I was getting from you.
Yeah, I pitched it that way, but I'm apparently off. I'm certainly no attorney. I know a lot of the local history. I'm 5 generations deep in Murfreesboro as well, and the history of this town matters to me greatly as well. That's what drives all of this. I've already fixed up 5 or 6 houses down here within a block or half a mile of the square. I'm not going to benefit from this personally. I'm in the middle of fixing that 1892 that I almost sold because I'm not going to let it get torn down. It's not going to be by me that we lose any historic structures in this town. And I really don't see that this is something anybody could take advantage of. There's just too many steps. Quite frankly, I don't know that I would even apply for such an exemption because then I've got to take another month to come sit before you guys. But if we enact it, it could really help somebody or some structure that really needs it, like that King House in Smyrna. They've been trying to save that thing for decades, and it's still sitting there.
Mr. McAdoo, do you have, I'm sorry.
Well, he touched on something.
He touched on it. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah. Of course, this is kind of like asking the question, how high is up? But do you anticipate some sort of a floodgate opening? In my mind, which my mind is very finite, you know,
Yeah.
I can't see there'd be 450, 500 houses just bound to.
There aren't that many left, you know, at all.
It would not be that much of a tax burden on the remaining taxpayers.
I don't believe so. And I'm not an expert at the equalization process, but I'm not so certain that after 4 years, the equalization wouldn't absorb that break. When, you know, but again, I'm not so certain on any of how that works. But I do know that, you know, the tax bill fluctuates and every 4 years we adjust.
Good discussions.
Once the board is set up, can the commission end it?
That's a good question.
Let's just say they're giving away tax breaks to everybody and it's costing us a lot. Can we?
If you have the authority to set the board, it looks like to me, you would have the authority to discontinue the process. You have a motion on the
Yes,
floor?
Motion, sir.
I'd like for you not to take this forward at the April 12th meeting. That's a little too close for us to get our county attorney to review this. Craft, between Ms. Scarlett and Attorney Craft, a resolution that says this the way you want to say it and puts the proper language. I'd like you to give us until the May meeting if you could.
Can you just bring the resolution back to the committee?
We could bring the resolution back to you next steering meeting and then we could carry it forward.
Yes,
Okay, is that okay with that?
Yes, sir.
And
That's
who
fine.
seconded the motion?
That's good.
Okay.
He's Paul seconded that.
Okay, what else?
Would our state still be in session and plenty of time for this to be enacted?
We don't need a private act. We have authority under the state statute to do this.
So all we have to do is say yes.
All we gotta do is structure this the way you want it structured according to this state statute that's in place.
So time is not.
So time is not of any essence.
Thank you.
If it helps, I've already had some communication in the past with the county attorney, so he's already fairly familiar with it, so it shouldn't take an extremely long amount of time.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, let's have a roll call vote, please.
The vote is to table it.
To send it to the county attorney to do a
approve this
resolution
subject to
and then bring it back to our.
Further study and bring it back to you at the next meeting with a resolution that would adopt this with some of the other things like terms, et cetera, included.
Becky, would you like to read the motion, please?
Move forward to the commission, subject to the county attorney review and presentation of a proposed resolution.
At the next steering meeting.
So it wouldn't need to go to the full commission.
Until May.
It'll come back
Yeah, it'll
here
come back to us
May, in the
first.
1st of May, and then we'll send it on. Or not send it on.
That's not what I heard when she read that. That's why I asked.
A presentation of a proposed resolution at the next steering committee meeting.
In May.
Okay, call it roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you so much. And very quickly, I am a member of the Murfreesboro Historic Zoning Commission and the current president of the Association for the Preservation of Tennessee Antiquities. So I also wanted to turn in an application to serve if you wanted to use me to move forward with this in any way with the commission. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Any other business?
Good job.
If there's no other business, this meeting stands adjourned.